Our mateys, today let's talk a little bit about tiller versus a wheel. A lot of boats have wheels, a lot of them have tillers. So let me just start off with, alright, the wheel has got a lot of moving parts. You know, you've got a couple of cams, there's some cables, there's linkage, there's chain, there's, I don't know, other things with that. Stainless steel connections, and then of course you could have hydraulic. Now, those are all things that can go wrong. Very seldom do they do, but they can. The tiller, on the other hand, it's got two parts. A bolt that holds the tiller arm when you go up and down, and then the yoke that holds it as you steer right or go to starboard or to port, and it's direct drive. There's not a lot that can go wrong with it. And of course, tillers are not just for small boats. I'm on a 30-footer. I've seen them on 34, 36. There's a boat over here, Pegasus. He's over 40. He's got a tiller. So the size of the boat, I mean, most boats had tillers before wheels were started, right? Now, as far as an autopilot is concerned, well, the autopilot on the tiller, very straightforward, very simple. Now, I've got a Simrad, and this thing is really robust. It's powerful. And it's got all the features that you have on a steering one. Now, the wheel one, there's usually a bracket that's attached to the wheel, and there's a gear in there that turns, and it does all of that. And then you have a nice little display that tells you, you know, what direction you're heading in. You know, there's another instrument that tells you that. It's called the compass. All you have to do is look at the compass. Both of them have the same type of features, though. You can hold the button, and for a short period of time, it turns a couple of degrees to starboard or to port. Has an auto tack function that you hit the button and hold it, and then you go through the process of that, and it helps you auto tack, especially if you're a solo sailor. So that part of it is pretty similar. Now, I don't think there's a remote control for the Simrad autopilot, and a lot of times on the wheel ones you have a remote control, but I don't think that's that big of an issue. Cost is another thing. I mean, and I'm not going to mention pricing because that's always changing, but I can tell you the cost of an autopilot for a tiller versus the autopilot for a steering wheel on the boat. And the tiller one is so much less expensive, and there's only a couple of things in there. Now, you got to calibrate the compass just like you do with the steering one. So autopilot works on both. Well, let's take a look too at the aesthetics of things. A steering wheel is, unless you're spending $4,000 or $5,000 on a handcrafted wheel, it's stainless steel with some spokes, and it is what it is. The tiller, this is a work of art. This was made by anytiller.com. I mean, just look at the workmanship that went into this. They hand-picked the wood, they hand-work it. It's a work of art. It's not just a stick to steer the boat. I mean, aesthetically, it really looks nice. So that's another part. Let's talk about room on the boat and getting around in the cockpit. And the steering wheel, well, you could get the folding wheel when you're at the pier or at anchor, or there's also a pivoting steering column that goes to starboard or to port or center. Usually you find those on the bigger boats, but for the most part, The steering on the Sailboat, it's going to be a pedestal, and it's going to be a nice big wheel, so it's easy to handle, but it's not easy to get around. I mean, you're always, and I don't care how big a boat it is, you're working around that. With the tiller, no problem. Hey, I need to get around, I lift it, move it, and when I'm at the marina or at anchor, I just fold it up out of the way, and now I've got all of this cockpit room for guests and people to sit and relax in. Now, under sail, I will admit, when you have people on board, the tiller does take up a little bit of room as far as your seating capacity, but I haven't had any problems with it. I mean, it moves to starboard and port with no issues. So, at first when I got this boat, I said, gee, I don't know if I'm really going to like a tiller. But man, it is so responsive. It's instant. You feel right away. I mean, it's direct drive. With the steering wheel, and I've had a boat with a steering wheel, you don't feel the rudder like you do with the tiller. Now let's talk about foul weather. In foul weather, if you're on a sailboat with the steering wheel, it's toward the stern of the boat. Unless you have a full enclosure, you're out there in the bad weather. On the other hand, with the tiller in bad weather, I just duck up underneath the Dodger. That's what the Dodger's for. And I can still reach back and steer when I need to. Again, the autopilot takes care of a lot of it, but when you're coming into a harbor, you need to be on the steering, whether it's a steering wheel or a tiller. So, foul weather, I think this is a little bit better. Well guys, I'm sure there's a lot of other points that you can bring out on steering wheel versus tiller. These are just some of my thoughts on it. I like the tiller. It's been really good for me. The autopilot has worked out extremely well for me, and I'm happy with it. So whatever you're happy with is what you need to go with, and whatever you have, hopefully you're happy with it. Well, until next time, happy and safe boating to you, your family, and friends.